Rugby World Cup 2023, folks. This weekend, the other game in Pool B, as most eyes seem to be on South Africa and Ireland, sees Scotland taking on Tonga in what's a must-win game as well. If anything, that game's not must-win because both those sides haven't lost the game yet, but this game is must-win because both sides have dropped a game. Tonga were kind of poor against Ireland. They didn't show what they could do. And Scotland, likewise, were kept relatively quiet by South Africa in their game. So both these sides chance to bounce back, find another gear, and keep themselves in the hunt for quarter-final qualification at the Rugby World Cup. We're going to go through some squads, some prediction stats, recent history, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. The recent history, there's only one game that's kind of even relatively recent. It was a 60-14 blowout back in 2021. And looking at the squads that day, neither of them were near full strength. From memory, is that the game where the Scots kind of didn't have access to a lot of their players abroad? And Tonga certainly didn't have half the players they have in this game. So, yeah, the recent history is 4-1 to Scotland. But, I mean, even that most recent game, which I said, doesn't involve many of the recent players. You've got games back in 2014, 2012, 2001. And then 1995. So these teams don't play each other that much. The recent history ain't that recent is basically the point I am getting at. So, yeah, it's kind of a fresh start for both these teams. I mean, every game is a fresh start, but even more so with this one. The Scots have picked a kind of changed lineup, remembering they've been sitting for a week after their first loss while everyone else has been the Tongans were getting into action after sitting for the first week. So, they've had a bit of chance to kind of tinker and ponder and see how they were going to approach this game. They have made a few changes. So Rory Sutherland comes in at loose head. From memory, wasn't he nursing a bit of an injury coming into the tournament? But either way, he's fit and available for this one. Turner and Zander Fagerson continue alongside him. Richie Gray and Scott Cummings is a changed second row with Cummings up off the bench. Jamie Ritchie, Rory Darge and Dempsey. The back row is unchanged. Ritchie still captains the side, which means there's still no spot for Matt Fagerson. Yeah, ever since Jack Dempsey's kind of come on the scene, he's stolen a little bit of Matt Fagerson's thunder, I guess. He's taken that number 8 starting spot. Different players. But, certainly a bit of pressure on Cummings and Gray in particular, but maybe also Jamie Ritchie to try and disrupt a bit of the Tongan line-out ball because that's something that the Irish proved pretty effective at doing. Ben White and Finn Russell continue on at 9-10. They haven't pulled the pin and chucked in a George Horne just yet. I know a lot of Scottish fans would like to see George Horne getting the start. Tuipulotu and Chris Harris is a changed midfield as well, which means Hugh Jones is down to the bench. It's kind of unusual. I know it used to always be Chris Harris at 13, but it's been Hugh Jones and Tuipulotu together as a pairing for quite some time. But, I mean, Gregor Townsend talked about wanting to give games to guys, wanting to create competition, especially with the guys who've played a lot of games for Scotland over the years. So Chris Harris is certainly one of those. Kyle Steyn also comes in on the right wing for Darcy Graham, who drops to the bench. Kyle Steyn scored, I think, 4 tries in that game in 2021. So maybe that's part of the reason they brought him in. He likes playing Tonga. And then Blair Kinghorn continues on at fullback. Ashman comes in as reserve hooker. Schoeman drops to the bench. Now Sam Skinner's into the 23 on the bench. Matt Fagerson, George Horne, Hugh Jones, and Darcy Graham. Gregor Townsend also talked up the fact that they do have a 6-day turnaround for the Romania game. So maybe that's part of the reason they are kind of rejigging the lineup. But in all likelihood, whatever side Scotland throw out against Romania is going to have a pretty easy day at the office. Romania has not proved a challenge in any of their games just yet. For Tonga, no, they've kept things so stable. A couple of the guys have got different jersey numbers on. I'm not sure why, but they're pretty much the same. Fisi'ihoi, Ngamo, and Tamiafuna. Same front row. Tamiafuna still captains the side. Scrum time is going to be interesting. Big Ben is a big scrummager. Losi and Fefita in the second row swapped jerseys, as far as I can see, but it's the same locks as last time. And they'll be disappointed, man. Their line-out last time was 4 from 9. And Losi is a great line-out operator. Leva Fefita is great. Via Fefita is great. All these guys are great in the air. So there's no reason they shouldn't be hitting their marks at line-out time. Halofanua, Talitui, Fefita, that is the back row. Sione Taletui got through a bunch of tackles against Ireland, but yeah, honestly, the forward pack was a little bit underwhelming against a pretty good Irish team. It's sometimes hard to compare because there's levels to these things. But yeah, Ireland were too good on that day. Pulu and Havili continue on 9-10. Ahki and Fekitoa 12-13. They'll be disappointed with how much of a free run Bundy Ahki seemed to get in that Ireland game as well. So they'll be looking to take it up a notch. And speaking of the guys who are swapping jerseys, Taumuipiao and Kata are kind of swapping jersey numbers. Taumuipiao seemed to struggle under the high balls a wee bit, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Scotland kicking him a bit of ball. Piutau is at 15. Individually was great on kick return, but individually that's fine. But as a team, you need to have more than just one guy run it up from the back. Mole Kolomatangi and Pekitoa are the front row replacements. Adam Coleman in line for a Tongan debut. If he comes off the bench, Pierre is in on the bench. Sione Vailanu was there as well. So just the two backs in Takalua and Pellegrini as well. So yeah, those are the two lineups. Stats-wise, Scotland's attack, usually very, very sharp. Like one of the better attacks in rugby, just generally. Not just Six Nations rugby, but just they usually clock up close to 500 run meters a game pretty easy. Against South Africa, 229. So kept very quiet. I mean, they play a high-tempo game. They love to pass it around. But yeah, they were not allowed to do any of that against South Africa. They scored 3 points, which is very, very uncharacteristic. The only teams that kind of usually in the last 12 months have been able to like kind of dominate Scotland in terms of like some of the X-factor stats like clean breaks and whatnot has been when they've played Ireland or where they've played France. Their most recent game against France, Scotland still looked, a couple of games, they still looked all right. But like the Six Nations game, France kept them pretty quiet, or at least France got more of those kind of stats than Scotland did. But yeah, it was really, really uncharacteristic for Scotland to be kept as quiet as they were against South Africa. South Africa's a big pack, man. What are you going to say? Same with Tonga. They only had 2 clean breaks against Ireland. And as I mentioned, the line-out really struggled. They conceded 16 penalties. They're going to need to be far, far better up against Scotland if they're going to have any chance. The game is on at Nice. It's a 5:45 local kickoff, which is 4:45 in the morning for me here in New Zealand. Probably will get up to watch this one, just because it's such a do-or-die contest. Carl Dixon is the ref. I don't seem to remember him having any kind of particular clangers thus far, but we're only still in the pool stages. Predictions-wise, Scotland are big-time favourites. The number 5 side in the world up against number 15. Maybe that makes sense. 23 points, say the bookies, and 30 points, says the rugby forecast algorithm. So yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel. More World Cup previews on the way. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon.